Can you comment? Is that in the works? Is that going maybe happening?
So the Brain Injury Association and their State Directors Association and I apologize, I'm forgetting the name of the other national organization. There were three came to us that are all recipients of the HRSA funding, as well as the P&As, and said, please take us out of HRSA now that you exist. It's a move that has to happen in the legislation. So we have actually had technical assistance requested and provided to the members of the staff on the Hill who are interested in that. And you know, it certainly would be something that would be great for NACDD to support your brain injury colleagues on in terms of moving that program over to ACL.
Yeah, that is something at the national level. We have communicated specifically with NDRN that we are supportive and have offered that, you know, when the time comes, if we need to, whether it's do Hill visits or contact members or do a letter, that we would do what is necessary to support that move because we think it's a positive thing.
Thanks.
Yep.
The RA seeing this as a way for them to make more money.
They're not seeing it as a way for them to make more money. They're seeing it as a way to actually, you know, we're trying to get the P&A programs all kind of actually working together, and it's working with 7 different federal agencies makes their job challenging in a different way, despite the resources that come with that.
Sharon, I'm just curious if the VA has weighed in on this at all, or if they're being asked to, because of the brain injury. In Maine, it's a particular focus.
No, no, but I think that we are working with the VA on other issues. One of the things that has been fascinating in the establishment of the ACL, and this kind of relates to the ADRCs, and I know we're doing this mixed feelings about the ADRCs, but one of the opportunities that the ADRCs has created by having this partnership with CMS and kind of trying to foment this idea of community living at the state level, is that the VA actually came to ACL and put money into the ADRCs this year, in part because they know that they have a system right now that doesn't support returning veterans in the way that they want to be supported. You know, they are still primarily a facility-based set of entities, so we are in conversations with them, as is CMS more broadly, around how we can be almost a technical assistance sister agency with them on some of these issues for returning veterans. I'm not aware of, maybe you are, but I'm not aware of specific VA, TBI funding that's coming into HHS. At this point, what we're talking about on this particular issue is there is under the Brain Injury Act a specific set of programs that provides funding to the P&As and grants to states around brain injury issues, which may or may not include veterans at the state's discretion. And so it's really around those grant programs and that specific line of funding. But I think it would open the door for furthering the conversation with the VA on these issues, and certainly with SAMHSA as well.
I brought this up to you in Chicago. I'm just wondering what we can do or start talking about a conversation about the Centers for Accessible Living, the SILCs. There seems to be this huge disconnect with what, there's a little bit of overlap, but they're out there doing their thing. It seems to me that this is a perfect place for them to bring it more into a collaborative nature from up. Is there any discussion happening with that?
So there has been conversation with NICL and their national association, which really only represents about 40% of their membership. So it's a little bit difficult because then you have April, you have a couple different national associations, and certainly just as DD councils are not monolithic, ILs are worse. They are truly independent. There has been, and this again is going to have to come from the advocacy community, there has been a question raised in multiple rooms, should the ILs be moved from the Department of Education into the Administration for Community Living, and kind of completing our picture in terms of programming for people with physical disabilities, because at this point we have DD programming and we have aging programming. We don't really have specific grant dollars to support people with physical disabilities and they kind of end up having to grab at what's left on the table after aging. So that is a question that, again, is going to have to come from, and NACDD at some point will be asked to, I would imagine, engage in taking a position. I think that they're still trying to work through. Nickel has a very high level of process engagement in terms of their decision making. They have 35 volunteer committees that all have to decide what their position is going to be on this particular issue, and I think it's a little bit difficult because their last legislative proposal would have created an administration for independent living within the Department of Education and stood up a whole other entity in the legislation. I don't think that anybody thinks that that's very realistic, and even if it was, there are a lot of questions around, is the Department of Education the place that you want to do that when repeatedly you're going to have, a secretarial priority that is really on two things, which is K-12 education and higher education. VR and IL, and to some degree early childhood, frequently get lost at the Department of Ed because of the other competing priorities. So that's where it is. We would be supportive. We don't have an official administration position. It would have to be done in legislation, which unfortunately the vehicle is WIA, which has little to no chance of moving anytime soon that I'm aware of. It's been overdue for reauthorization. The last reauthorization was 1998. So that's where that is. Now, whether anybody figures out a mechanism to do that administratively, I don't know. Thank you.
Sharon, I just want to be cognizant of your
Yep.
time. We have maybe one or two more questions, but it's on the slow. Yep. To catch up.
Yeah. Larry?
In Arizona, prior to the previous council dissolving, that council was very involved in the minimum wage issue.
Yes.
And it's starting to re-percolate Arizona. There's already the dividing lines that are starting to form. And I was wondering if you could give us any kind of an update that you might be aware of, or where it's sitting at a national level in terms of eliminating the sub-minimum wage.
So it continues to be a very divisive issue. Our administration has not taken a position on it. We've taken a very strong position that we believe competitive integrated employment should be the first priority, and the children's workshops should be on the wane. In terms of the Fair Labor Standards Act and the elimination of sub-minimum wage, I mean, that's really a legislative issue. There's been a fair amount of attention and traction around it. I don't know that the community is unified enough yet, and you can express a different opinion on this, but enough to move it. I mean, I think that a lot of, and speaking as a former health staffer, I mean, I think that people begin to shut down because it's gotten so divisive and ugly and nasty among the community itself, that there have been a couple, there are a couple of bills that have been introduced, but I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon in terms of amending the Fair Labor Standards Act. I think that, what we've done with our employment initiative and what the position has been of the administration is, let's develop the community capacity and try and do what we can to close the front door. And we've been pushing the Department of Ed pretty hard on that conversation in terms of